Commander Vexstar stood before the massive holographic display showing the galaxy's outer rim. His long, pale fingers traced the edges of what humans called the Milky Way for 300 years. The Zephyrian Empire had expanded across the stars, bringing order to chaos. World after world had fallen to their precise methods. "Another primitive species, Commander," said his aide, Captain Zixara, as she handed him a data tablet. "They call themselves humans. Their planet is named Earth." Vexstar's black eyes scanned the information. Earth was a small blue world in an unremarkable solar system. The species had barely reached their own moon. They fought among themselves constantly. Their technology was crude compared to Zephyrian standards. "Why does the Council concern itself with such primitives?" Vexstar asked. "Read the tactical reports." "Sir, our advanced scouts have been watching them for 50 Earth years. They possess unusual fighting patterns." Vexstar's interest grew as he read. Humans did not follow standard military doctrine, they improvised. They used tactics that made no logical sense. In their recent conflicts, small groups of humans had defeated much larger forces through unpredictable methods. "This is concerning," Vexstar muttered. "Species that cannot be predicted are difficult to conquer." The report detailed human conflicts across their short history. They used terrain in ways other species never considered. They adapted their tactics mid-battle. Most disturbing of all, individual humans often acted without orders, making decisions that changed entire battles. "The Council has decided," Zixara said. "Earth must be neutralized before they develop space travel. We cannot allow such chaos to spread." Vexstar nodded. The Empire had faced unpredictable species before. The solution was always the same. Send in the shadow wraiths, remove the leadership, watch the species crumble. "Prepare 12 shadow wraiths," Vexstar ordered. "Target their military commanders. Focus on the nation called America. Our scouts report their soldiers are the most adaptable." Far across the galaxy, Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison finished cleaning his rifle. The Marine Corps sniper instructor had spent 20 years perfecting his craft. At Quantico, he taught the next generation of American marksmen. His students came from all branches of the military, learning skills that had been passed down since the Revolutionary War. Morrison looked out at the training range. Young Marines were practicing long-distance shots. Each one was learning more than just marksmanship. They were learning patience, observation, and most importantly, how to think for themselves. "Sir," called Sergeant Danny Walsh, jogging up to Morrison. "We have a problem." Morrison set down his rifle. "What kind of problem?" "3 of our best students. They all had equipment failures yesterday, same type of failure. Scopes went dark right before they took their shots." Morrison frowned. "Military. Equipment was tested thoroughly. 3 identical failures in one day was unusual. Show me the scopes." They walked to the equipment shed. Morrison examined the damaged scopes. Each one showed the same pattern of failure. The electronics had been burned out from the inside, but there were no external marks. "Have you seen anything like this before?" Walsh asked. Morrison shook his head. "No, and I've seen plenty of equipment failures. This looks like something hit them with electromagnetic energy." Meanwhile, 200 miles away, Captain Lisa Rodriguez stared at her computer screen. The Army intelligence officer had been tracking unusual readings for weeks. Electromagnetic signatures appeared near military bases across the country. The signals were brief but powerful. "Any luck identifying the source?" asked Major Ben Clark, her supervisor. "Nothing that makes sense," Rodriguez replied. "The signals are too focused to be natural, too brief to be from our own equipment, and they always appear before training accidents." Clark leaned over her shoulder. "What kind of accidents?" "Equipment failures. Communication breakdowns. Yesterday, 3 Marine snipers at Quantico had their scopes burn out simultaneously." Clark's expression grew serious. "That's the 5th incident this week. Are we looking at enemy action?" Rodriguez had been wondering the same thing. "If it is, it's unlike anything we've seen. The technology would have to be incredibly advanced." At the Pentagon, General Frank Butler was reviewing reports from bases across the country. The decorated officer had commanded troops in 3 wars. He had seen enemy attempts to disrupt American military training before. This was different. "The pattern is clear," Butler told his aide, Colonel Steve Williams. "Someone is targeting our training programs. Specifically, they're targeting our most elite soldiers." Williams nodded. "The incidents are focused on Special Forces training, sniper schools, and advanced tactics courses. It's like someone is trying to weaken our most capable fighters," Butler said. "But how are they doing it?" The answer came sooner than expected. That evening, Butler was leaving a classified meeting when the lights in the Pentagon corridor flickered. For a moment, the air seemed to shimmer. Then Butler saw something that made his blood run cold. A figure appeared in the hallway. It was tall and thin, with pale skin and black eyes. The creature wore no clothing, but its skin seemed to bend light around it. In its hand was a weapon unlike anything Butler had ever seen. Butler reached for his sidearm, but the creature moved faster than humanly possible. The weapon fired a beam of red light that missed Butler by inches. The beam struck the wall behind him, leaving a perfectly round hole. "Security!" Butler shouted. Sergeant Danny Walsh happened to be visiting the Pentagon that day. He was walking down the same corridor when he heard Butler's shout. Walsh had spent years training his eyes to spot the smallest details. As he rounded the corner, he saw something others might have missed. The air near General Butler was wrong. It bent and twisted slightly, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Walsh had no idea what he was looking at, but his instincts told him to act. "General, get down!" Walsh shouted. Drawing his weapon, the creature became visible as it turned toward Walsh. Its alien features were unmistakable. This was no human enemy. Walsh fired 3 quick shots. The creature staggered, greenish blood flowing from its wounds. The alien raised its weapon toward Walsh, but Butler had recovered. The general's own sidearm barked twice. The creature collapsed, its weapon clattering across the floor. "What in God's name was that thing?" Butler asked. Walsh approached the body carefully. "I don't know, sir. But I think we're not alone anymore." Security forces arrived within minutes. The alien's body was immediately classified. Dr. Helen Parker, a scientist who studied unknown biological threats, was called in. She had worked on classified projects before, but nothing had prepared her for this. "It's definitely not human," she told the assembled military leaders. "The bone structure is wrong. The blood chemistry is unlike anything on Earth. And this weapon." She gestured to the alien device. "This is technology we don't understand." General Butler looked grim. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, are we looking at an invasion?" Dr. Parker examined her preliminary findings. "Based on the stealth capabilities we witnessed, I'd say this was an assassination attempt. The question is, who sent it, and how many more are coming?" The answer came from Captain Rodriguez. Her electromagnetic monitoring equipment had detected 12 similar signatures across the country in the past month. 12 signals, each appearing near locations where America's best soldiers trained. "They're hunting our military leaders," Rodriguez reported, and this was just the beginning. As news of the alien encounter spread through classified channels, one thing became clear. Earth was no longer hidden from the galaxy. Someone out there knew about humanity, and they wanted America's finest warriors dead. The question was, what would humanity do about it? Lieutenant Colonel Morrison received the classified briefing that night. As he read about the alien assassin, he realized the equipment failures at Quantico had been assassination attempts. His students had been targeted because they represented the future of American warfare. "They picked the wrong species to mess with," Morrison said to himself. He began making calls to old friends. Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen who had served in America's conflicts. Men and women who understood that sometimes the only way to win was to fight dirty. To use tactics the enemy would never expect, the alien empire thought they were hunting. Earth soldiers, they were about to learn that American warriors hunt back. Dr. Helen Parker had worked with strange materials before, but nothing like this. The alien weapon lay on her laboratory table, its surface smooth and dark. She had been studying it for 3 days without sleep. Every test revealed technology that should not exist. The power source is completely unknown, she told General Butler over the secure phone. It generates energy at the molecular level. Our best scientists cannot explain how it works. Butler was not surprised. Since the Pentagon incident, similar attacks had been reported worldwide. NATO commanders in Europe, Chinese generals in Beijing, Russian officers in Moscow, all killed by invisible assassins using weapons that left no trace. How many more are out there? Butler asked. Based on Captain Rodriguez's electromagnetic readings, we estimate at least 10 more alien assassins are operating in North America alone. Butler felt a chill. 10 alien killers, each capable of turning invisible and carrying weapons that could punch through concrete. America's military leadership was being hunted by an enemy they could barely see. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison arrived at the Pentagon the next morning. He had been summoned to join a new task force. As he walked through the corridors where the alien had been killed, he noticed the security measures had doubled, guards at every corner, metal detectors that had been upgraded with equipment he did not recognize. The briefing room was filled with America's best military minds. Captain Rodriguez sat at a computer terminal, her screen showing electromagnetic readings from across the country. Navy SEAL Commander Rick Stone studied satellite images of recent attack sites. Air Force Major Ashley Turner reviewed radar data that showed nothing but somehow recorded everything. Gentlemen and ladies, General Butler began, we are facing an enemy unlike any in human history. They are not from this world. They can become invisible. They are hunting our military leaders with technology we cannot match. Morrison raised his hand. Sir, what do we know about their tactics? Captain Rodriguez answered. They observe their targets for days before attacking. They use advanced reconnaissance to learn our security procedures. They predict our responses and plan accordingly. Commander Stone leaned forward. They sound like professionals. Military assassins with superior equipment. Exactly, Butler said. But they have made mistakes. The one Sergeant Walsh killed was overconfident. It revealed itself when it should have remained hidden. Major Turner studied the data. They seem to expect us to follow standard military protocols. When we do something unexpected, they struggle to adapt. Morrison nodded. In Afghanistan, I saw Taliban fighters who had learned to predict our patrol patterns. When we changed tactics, mid-operation, they could not adjust fast enough. Dr. Parker entered the room carrying a tablet filled with analysis data. I have news about our alien visitor. The autopsy revealed something interesting. Its brain shows heavy cybernetic enhancement. It was essentially a biological computer designed for warfare. What does that mean? Butler asked. It means they think like machines. They process information, calculate probabilities, and execute plans, but machines struggle with chaos, with unpredictability. Morrison felt something click in his mind. They are hunting us like we are prey animals, following patterns, predicting behavior. But humans are not prey animals. Commander Vexstar was growing frustrated. His shadow wraiths had eliminated 17 targets across Earth, but the humans were adapting faster than expected. 3 of his assassins had been killed. 2 more had been wounded and forced to retreat. Their security measures are improving, reported Captain Zixara. They are using detection methods we did not anticipate. Vexstar studied the tactical reports. Humans had modified earthquake monitoring equipment to detect the gravitational disturbances created by Zephyrian cloaking technology. The discovery had come from a scientist named Dr. Carl Jackson, who noticed seismic anomalies before each assassination. How did they make this connection so quickly? Vexstar demanded. Human thinking patterns are more chaotic than our models predicted. They make intuitive leaps that our logic systems cannot follow. Back on Earth, Dr. Jackson was explaining his discovery to the task force. The seismologist had been studying earthquake data when he noticed tiny gravitational waves appearing before each alien attack. The cloaking technology bends space slightly, Jackson explained. My equipment was sensitive enough to detect these distortions. Now we can track them. Morrison studied the detection data. How much warning does this give us? About 30 seconds before they decloak to attack. 30 seconds? Morrison repeated. That is enough time to change the game. Major Turner was already working on countermeasures. We can set up detection grids around high-value targets. When we detect an incoming assassin, we can respond immediately. But Rodriguez had concerning news. The aliens are learning from our responses. Each attack shows more sophistication. They are studying us just like we are studying them. The next test came in Nevada. General Patricia Hayes, commander of the Nellis Air Force Base, was targeted by a shadow wraith. The task force had prepared carefully. Detection equipment surrounded the base. Response teams were positioned at strategic points. When Dr. Jackson's equipment detected the gravitational distortion, alarms sounded throughout the base. General Hayes was moved to a secure bunker. While security forces searched for the invisible threat, Morrison was part of the response team. He moved through the base with his rifle ready, knowing the alien could be anywhere. The detection equipment showed the distortion moving toward the command center. Contact bearing 270, Rodriguez reported over the radio. Moving toward Building 6, Morrison repositioned his team. Instead of following standard procedures, he split his forces into 3 groups. One group moved to intercept the alien directly. Another group circled to flank it. The third group stayed back too. Provide cover. The shadow wraith reached Building 6 and began searching for its target. When it found the building empty, it paused. This was not according to its programming. The target should have been there. Morrison's flanking team moved into position. When the alien turned to retreat, it found itself surrounded. The creature became visible as it raised its weapon, but Morrison was ready. Now, Morrison whispered into his radio. 3 rifles fired simultaneously. The alien staggered but did not fall. Its armor was more advanced than the previous assassin. It fired. Back, its red beam missing Morrison's head by inches. Commander Stone appeared from behind cover. The Navy SEAL carried a modified grenade launcher loaded with explosive rounds designed to disrupt alien technology. The blast knocked the shadow wraith to the ground. Morrison approached carefully. The alien was still alive but badly wounded. As he watched, it began to dissolve. Some kind of self-destruct mechanism was destroying the evidence. They do not want us to learn from their bodies, Morrison observed. Dr. Parker analyzed the residue left behind. This confirms they are using advanced biotechnology. The self-destruct is built into their cellular structure. But the successful defense had revealed something important. The aliens could be defeated if humans used unpredictable tactics. Standard military doctrine made them easy to hunt. Chaos made them vulnerable. In space, Commander Vextar received the report of another failed mission. His most experienced shadow wraith had been killed by primitives using crude weapons and clever positioning. They are not following logical military procedures, Zixara reported. Their tactics make no strategic sense. Explain. They split their forces unnecessarily. They positioned troops in locations that offered no tactical advantage. They used weapons that were inferior to our assassin's armor. But somehow it worked. Vextar studied human military history. These creatures had fought wars for thousands of years. They had developed tactics through trial and error, not through logical calculation. Their warfare was more art than science. Send reinforcements, Vextar ordered. But tell them to expect the unexpected. Back on Earth, Morrison was developing a new strategy. If the aliens expected logical military responses, then America would give them chaos instead. He began reaching out to veterans from every branch of service. Not just recent soldiers, but men and women who had fought in Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. We need people who understand irregular warfare, Morrison told General Butler. People who know how to fight dirty. Master Sergeant Tony Miller was 72 years old and had not held a rifle in combat for 30 years. But when Morrison called, the Vietnam veteran did not hesitate. You need someone who knows how to fight an enemy with better equipment? Miller asked. Son, that was every day in the jungle. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had left the Marine Corps 2 years earlier. She had served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, specializing in urban warfare. When Morrison explained about the invisible aliens, she laughed. Invisible enemies are nothing new. Every insurgent thinks he is invisible until you put a bullet in him. Corporal Jake Peterson was still active duty, stationed at Fort Benning. At 25, he was the youngest member Morrison recruited, but he had already established himself as one of the Army's best long-range marksmen. "How far can these aliens see?" Peterson asked. "We do not know," Morrison admitted. "Then we will find out the hard way." The team also included technical specialists. Master Sergeant Tony Miller had not expected to go back to war at 72 years old. He stood in the Nevada desert, his weathered hands holding a rifle that felt as natural as breathing. Beside him, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos checked her equipment one more time. At 38, she was young enough to be his daughter, but her eyes held the same hard knowledge that came from too many battles. "Feels like old times," Miller said quietly. "Which war?" Santos asked. "All of them." "Lieutenant?" Colonel Morrison studied the terrain through his binoculars. Intelligence reports indicated another shadow wraith was moving toward the Yucca Mountain facility. This time, his team would not wait for the alien to attack. They would hunt it first. Corporal Jake Peterson lay flat on a ridge 800 yards away. At 25, he was the team's longest-range shooter. His rifle was aimed at empty air, but Morrison's detection equipment showed exactly where the invisible enemy was moving. "Contact is moving northeast along the valley floor," reported Sergeant Ben Clark from his electronics station. "Speed is constant, no indication it knows we are here." Lieutenant Amy Foster coordinated the team's positions through encrypted radio. "Dragon 1 is in position. Dragon 2 has visual on the approach route. Dragon 3 is ready for intercept." Morrison smiled grimly. Dragon 1 was Miller, positioned with an old M14 rifle he had carried in Vietnam. Dragon 2 was Santos, hidden in rocks that reminded her of Afghanistan. Dragon 3 was Peterson. Using a modern sniper rifle with modifications Clark had made to disrupt alien technology, the Shadow Wraith moved through the desert like it owned the place. For 300 years, Zephyrian assassins had hunted primitive species across the galaxy. They were used to being the predators, not the prey. This one was designated Hunter Prime Kexvolum. It had eliminated 47 targets on 12 different worlds. Earth was supposed to be simple. Kill the human commanders, watch their military collapse, prepare for invasion. But something was wrong. Kexvol's sensors detected electromagnetic activity that should not exist. The humans had modified their detection equipment in ways Zephyrian technology could not predict. "I have movement," Peterson whispered into his radio. 820 yards, moving left to right. "Wait for my signal," Morrison replied. The alien reached the predetermined kill zone. It was a natural depression in the desert floor, surrounded by rocks and ridges. Perfect for an ambush if you knew how to set one up properly. Miller had learned ambush tactics fighting the Viet Cong 50 years earlier. Santos had perfected them against insurgents in Iraq. Peterson had studied every famous sniper engagement in American military history. Together, they represented centuries of accumulated combat knowledge. "Execute," Morrison said quietly. Peterson fired first. His bullet, modified with Clark's electromagnetic disruptor, struck the invisible alien center mass. The Shadow Wraith's cloaking technology flickered and failed. Suddenly, the creature was visible. Miller's second shot caught it in the shoulder as it tried to dodge. The old Marine's rifle might have been ancient by modern standards, but his aim was still perfect. Santos fired from her concealed position among the rocks. Her bullet struck the alien's weapon, shattering the advanced energy rifle into useless fragments. The Shadow Wraith staggered but did not fall. Its armor was designed to withstand primitive projectile weapons. But the humans had not finished. Chief Petty Officer Steve Williams appeared from behind cover, carrying a modified medical scanner. Clark had reprogrammed it to emit electromagnetic pulses that disrupted alien cybernetics. The beam struck Kexvol's enhanced brain, causing system failures throughout its body. The alien collapsed, its biological computer struggling to process what had happened. In 300 years of military operations, no primitive species had ever mounted such a coordinated attack. Morrison approached carefully, his rifle ready for a finishing shot, but the Shadow Wraith was already dying. Its self-destruct mechanism was activating but slowly. The electromagnetic pulse had damaged its internal systems. "Talk to me," Morrison said. "Who sent you?" Kexvol's black eyes focused on Morrison with difficulty. "Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. You are primitives. You cannot defeat us." "We just did," Morrison replied. "More will come. The Alpha Unit. You cannot hide from them." The alien dissolved into gray ash before Morrison could ask more questions, but he had learned enough. The Zephyrian Empire. Alpha Units. More advanced assassins were coming. Dr. Helen Parker analyzed the remains in her laboratory. Unlike previous samples, this alien had lived long enough for her to scan its brain activity. What she found was disturbing. "Their minds work like computers," she told General Butler. "They process tactical data and execute programmed responses. But when we used unpredictable tactics, their systems could not adapt fast enough." Butler nodded. "So Morrison's strategy is working. For now." But this alien mentioned Alpha Units. "If they send more advanced assassins, our current methods might not be enough." Commander Vextar received the report of Kexvol's death with growing anger. That made 4 Shadow Wraiths killed by human primitives. The Galactic Council was asking uncomfortable questions about Zephyrian military efficiency. How did they coordinate such an attack? Vextar demanded. Captain Zixara reviewed the tactical data. They used obsolete weapons and primitive communication systems. Our sensors could not predict their actions because their tactics made no logical sense, explained. They positioned their best marksman at maximum range, where his weapon was least effective. They used an elderly soldier with outdated equipment. They modified medical scanners into weapons. None of these choices follow standard military doctrine. Vextar studied human military history more carefully. These creatures had been fighting wars for millennia, but not the kind of wars the Zephyrian Empire understood. Human warfare was chaotic, unpredictable, and often irrational. "Deploy the Alpha Unit," Vextar ordered. "But tell them to expect anything." Back on Earth, Morrison's team was celebrating their first successful hunt. They had proven that Shadow Wraiths could be killed using human tactics and ingenuity. But Morrison knew this was only the beginning. They will send better assassins. "Next time," he told his team, "we need to be ready." Santos cleaned her rifle methodically. "What do we know about their capabilities?" Clark had been analyzing the alien technology fragments. Their cloaking systems can be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses. Their armor can be penetrated by concentrated fire. But their weapons are incredibly powerful. Williams checked his modified medical equipment. The electromagnetic pulse worked, but barely. If they send assassins with better shielding, we might not be able to disable them the same way. Peterson studied maps of potential target locations. Where will they hit next? Morrison had been thinking about that. They are targeting our military leadership, but they are also learning from each engagement. They will try to eliminate the people who are fighting back. Us, Miller said simply. U.S. Morrison agreed. Lieutenant Amy Foster had been monitoring communications from military bases across the country. "I am picking up reports of unusual activity near Fort Bragg, Norfolk Naval Base, and Peterson Air Force Base. The same electromagnetic signatures Captain Rodriguez detected before previous attacks." Morrison felt his blood run cold. They are not just targeting random commanders anymore. They are going after specific people. Butler received the intelligence report that evening. The aliens were escalating their operations. Instead of isolated assassination attempts, they were planning coordinated strikes against multiple targets simultaneously. "They want to decapitate our entire command structure at once," Butler told Morrison over the secure phone. "Can your team handle multiple threats?" Morrison looked at his small group of specialists. 8 people against an unknown number of alien assassins with advanced technology. The odds were not good. We cannot be everywhere at once, Morrison admitted. But we can teach others what we have learned. Within hours, Morrison was briefing military commanders across the country. He shared his team's tactics, their equipment modifications, and most importantly, their understanding of alien psychology. They think like machines, Morrison explained to a room full of generals and admirals. They calculate probabilities and execute plans. When we do something unexpected, they struggle to adapt. Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of the Pacific Fleet, raised her hand. What kind of unexpected tactics? Anything that breaks normal military procedure. Use obsolete equipment alongside modern systems. Position your best people in locations that make no tactical sense. Modify civilian equipment into weapons. Make decisions that seem irrational. General Robert Chun, who commanded NORAD, looked skeptical. You want us to abandon proven military doctrine? I want you to survive, Morrison replied. These aliens have studied our doctrine. They know how we think, how we plan, how we fight. The only way to beat them is to fight in ways they cannot predict. The meeting was interrupted by Captain Rodriguez. Sir, we have multiple contacts. At least 6 shadow wraiths are moving toward high-value targets across the country. Morrison felt the familiar calm that came before combat. This is it. They are making their big move. Butler looked around the room. Gentlemen and ladies, you have your orders. Fight smart, fight dirty. Assassin Prime Kethmer had never failed a mission in 200 years of service. The elite Shadow Wraith commander stood 7 feet tall, his pale skin covered with scars from a dozen different worlds. Unlike regular assassins, his body was enhanced with adaptive technology that learned from every encounter. These humans are different, he told his Alpha unit as their stealth ship approached Earth. They do not follow predictable patterns. Prepare for chaos. His team consisted of 6 elite assassins, each specializing in different forms of warfare. They had studied the failed missions of their predecessors. They would not make the same mistakes on Earth. Admiral Patricia Hayes was reviewing fleet operations in her Pearl Harbor office. The Pacific Fleet commander had implemented Morrison's defensive suggestions, but she felt exposed. Her security detail had been tripled, but invisible enemies made traditional protection nearly useless. Ma'am, said Commander Bill Murphy, her aide, we have detected the electromagnetic signature approaching from the north. Hayes nodded grimly. How long do we have? Based on previous patterns, approximately 10 minutes before they reach the base. Hayes activated the base-wide alert. Every sailor and marine on the base had been briefed on alien tactics. They knew to expect the unexpected, to use unconventional responses, to think like guerrilla fighters rather than regular military, but Kethmer was ready for their preparations. His team had analyzed human defensive improvements. They approached Pearl Harbor from underwater, using technology that made them undetectable to human sensors. The first sign of trouble came when a shore patrol found their boat empty, drifting near the harbor entrance. The 2 sailors who had been manning it were simply gone. No trace of struggle or violence. Hayes received the report in her bunker. They are already here. All units assume they have penetrated the perimeter. Kethmer and his team moved through the base using ventilation systems and service tunnels. Their adaptive technology allowed them to learn the base layout in real time. Unlike previous assassins, they did not rely on brute force approaches. Master Chief Petty Officer Carl Johnson was patrolling the area near Hayes' bunker when his radio crackled with static. Then the lights went out. In the darkness he heard something that made his blood freeze, the sound of footsteps that made no noise. Johnson had served in 3 wars. He trusted his instincts over his equipment. Something was moving in the corridor, something that should not exist. He raised his rifle toward the sound and fired 3 quick shots. The bullets struck something solid. Green blood splattered the wall, and suddenly an alien assassin became visible. But this one was different from the others Morrison's team had killed. Even wounded, it moved with lethal speed. Johnson dove aside as a red energy beam burned through the air where he had been standing. The alien's weapon was more advanced than previous models, firing faster and more accurately, but Johnson was not alone. Hayes had positioned her security teams using Morrison's advice in locations that made no tactical sense but created overlapping fields of fire from unexpected angles. Sailors appeared from storage closets and maintenance areas. They fired simultaneously, their bullets striking the wounded assassin from multiple directions. The creature staggered but did not fall. Its armor was adapting to their weapons, becoming more resistant with each hit. "Switch to backup weapons," Johnson ordered. The sailors drew sidearms, shotguns, and even tools from the base machine shop. The variety of different projectiles confused the aliens' adaptive systems. A wrench thrown by Petty Officer Sam Davis struck the creature in the head, disrupting its cybernetic enhancements. The assassin collapsed, but Johnson knew this was only one of several. The real target was Admiral Hayes' dot in her bunker. Hayes monitored the battle through security cameras. She could see her people fighting bravely, but the aliens were inside the base. More importantly, she realized this attack was different from the others. "Commander Murphy," she said, "I think this is a distraction." "Ma'am? The real attack is coming from somewhere else? These aliens are too smart to announce their presence unless they want us focused here." Hayes was right. While her security forces battled 3 assassins near the command center, Kethmore and 2 others approached the bunker from below. They had studied human defensive psychology and knew that commanders would retreat to hardened positions when threatened. The bunkers defenses were impressive by human standards: thick concrete walls, filtered air systems, independent power supplies. But Zephyrian technology could penetrate any material given enough time. Kethmore placed a small device against the bunker's floor. The alien tool began dissolving concrete at the molecular level, creating a perfectly silent entry point. In minutes, they would have access to their target, but Hayes had one advantage the aliens did not expect. She had learned from Morrison's unconventional thinking. Instead of staying in the bunker like a traditional commander, she was elsewhere entirely. The Admiral was hiding in the base laundry facility, armed with a rifle and protected by 2 Marine guards who had volunteered for the dangerous duty. It was the last place any logical enemy would look for a fleet commander. When Kethmore's team breached the bunker, they found it empty except for security cameras and a recorded message from Hayes herself. "If you are hearing this, you found my decoy bunker. Sorry to disappoint you. Try looking somewhere that makes no sense at all." Kethmore's enhanced brain processed this information with growing frustration. Humans were supposed to be predictable. They were supposed to follow logical military procedures. This chaos was not in his programming. "Spread out," he ordered his team. "Search every building. They cannot hide forever." But Hayes was not hiding. She was hunting. Using the base's surveillance systems, she tracked the alien movements and stayed one step ahead. When they searched the communications center, she was in the motor pool. When they checked the motor pool, she had moved to the medical facility. Master Chief Johnson coordinated the human response. His sailors used hit-and-run tactics, striking the aliens from unexpected positions and then disappearing into the maze of base buildings. They had turned Pearl Harbor into an urban warfare environment where the defenders held every advantage. Petty Officer Davis rigged improvised explosive devices using maintenance supplies. When an alien assassin entered the machine shop, the explosion brought down half the building. The creature survived but was badly injured and disoriented. Hospital corpsman Linda Martinez used her medical knowledge to create chemical weapons from cleaning supplies. When mixed properly, common disinfectants became toxic gas that disrupted alien respiratory systems. Electrician Second Class Gary Thompson cut power to different sections of the base in a random pattern, forcing the aliens to rely on their own light sources that made them visible to human defenders. The battle became a deadly game of hide and seek across the entire naval base. But the humans had one crucial advantage. They knew the terrain better than any computer could calculate. Kethmore was beginning to understand why previous missions had failed. These humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like insurgents. using every dirty trick imaginable. His adaptive technology was struggling to process their chaotic tactics. The final confrontation came in the base chapel. Hayes had chosen the location deliberately. It was the one place the aliens would not expect to find a military commander during combat operations. Kethmer entered the chapel alone, his weapon ready. He could detect Hayes' heat signature behind the altar, but something felt wrong. The tactical situation made no sense. "I know you are there," he called out in heavily accented English. "Surrender and your death will be quick." Hayes stepped out from behind the altar, her rifle aimed at the alien center mass. "I have a better idea. You surrender." Kethmer raised his weapon, but Hayes was not alone. Master Chief Johnson appeared from the organ loft above. Petty Officer Davis emerged from behind a pillar. Hospital Corpsman Martinez rose from beneath a pew. They had surrounded the alien using the chapel's architecture in ways no military manual would recommend. But it worked. "Fire," Hayes ordered. 4 rifles spoke simultaneously. Kethmer's adaptive armor began adjusting to the incoming projectiles. But the humans had learned from previous encounters. Each weapon fired different ammunition: standard bullets, armor-piercing rounds, explosive shells, and even a harpoon Davis had borrowed from a fishing boat. The variety overloaded the aliens' defensive systems. Kethmer staggered as multiple rounds penetrated his armor. Green blood splattered across the chapel walls, but the assassin prime was not finished. Even mortally wounded, he raised his weapon toward Hayes. His finger began to squeeze the trigger. Master Sergeant Tony Miller appeared in the chapel doorway. The 72-year-old Vietnam veteran had arrived at Pearl Harbor just in time. His ancient M14 rifle barked once, and Kethmer's head exploded in a shower of green gore. "Glad I could make it to the party," Miller said calmly. Hayes stared at the alien corpse. "How did you know to come here?" "Morrison sent me. Said you might need backup against the Alpha unit." As if summoned by his name, Morrison's voice crackled over Hayes' radio. "Admiral, report your status." "Target neutralized," Hayes replied. But this was too close. "If they send more advanced assassins, They will," Morrison interrupted. "Our intellig—" Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, as it entered Earth's solar system. The massive Zephyrian battlecruiser had never been defeated in 300 years of galactic conquest. Today it would end the embarrassment that Earth had become. "Status report," Vextar commanded. "Stealth systems are fully operational," reported Captain Zixara. "Human detection systems cannot penetrate our cloaking fields. We are invisible to their primitive sensors." Vextar nodded. He had abandoned the subtle approach. No more individual assassins, no more testing human defenses. Today, he would personally eliminate Earth's leadership and broadcast their failure across the galaxy. His target was Camp David, where intelligence indicated the American president was meeting with allied military commanders. One strike would decapitate the human resistance and prove that the Zephyrian Empire remained supreme on Earth. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison was preparing for what he knew would be the final battle. Intelligence reports indicated massive electromagnetic disturbances approaching from space. The aliens were no longer hiding their presence. "They are coming in force," Morrison told his assembled team. "This is not another assassination attempt. This is an invasion." The team had grown since their first encounters. Master Sergeant Miller stood beside young Corporal Peterson, their age difference spanning 50 years of American military history. Staff Sergeant Santos checked her equipment next to former Delta Force operator Captain Nick Davis, who had volunteered after hearing about the alien threat. CIA operative Agent Kate Sullivan had joined the team, bringing intelligence gathering skills that complemented their combat abilities. Electronics expert Sergeant Ben Clark had worked around the clock to modify their weapons and detection systems. "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked Davis. Morrison studied the satellite data. "They have a large ship, probably a warship. If they are willing to reveal it, they must be confident in their superiority." Peterson adjusted his rifle scope. "How do we fight a spaceship? "We do not fight the ship," Morrison replied. "We fight the aliens inside it." Agent Sullivan had been monitoring communications from Camp David. "The president is refusing to evacuate. He says running from aliens sends the wrong message to the world," Miller snorted. "Politicians. He is right, though," Santos said. "If America's leadership runs from the first sign of trouble, what does that tell our enemies?" Morrison made his decision. "We protect Camp David, we use every trick we have learned, and we show these aliens that Earth is not for sale." The team moved to positions around the presidential retreat. Morrison had studied the terrain carefully, identifying locations that offered tactical advantages while appearing to make no strategic sense. Clark had modified the facility's electromagnetic detection systems, creating an early warning network that could track cloaked alien vessels. Williams set up a field medical station in the old bomb shelter, ready to treat casualties from weapons they barely understood. Lieutenant Foster coordinated communications between the team and the Secret Service agents protecting the president. The government security forces had been briefed on alien tactics, but they remained skeptical about facing enemies from space. "Contact approaching from the northeast," Clark reported. "Large signature moving slowly." Morrison raised his binoculars. He could see nothing in the sky, but the detection equipment clearly showed a massive object descending toward Camp David. Vexstar surveyed the human facility from his ship's command deck. The presidential retreat was a collection of simple buildings surrounded by forest. The primitive structures looked pathetic compared to Zephyrian military installations. "Begin descent," Vexstar ordered. "Maintain stealth until we are directly above the target." The Dominion's edge settled into a low hover above Camp David's main lodge. Vexstar could see humans moving around the buildings, unaware that death waited above them. "Deploy assault teams," he commanded. "Eliminate all resistance. Capture their leader alive if possible." But as the ship's bay doors opened, Peterson was already taking aim from a ridge 2 miles away. The young sniper could not see the alien vessel, but Clark's electronics guided his targeting system. "Fire," Morrison whispered into his radio. Peterson's rifle cracked. The bullet, enhanced with Clark's electromagnetic disruptor, struck the invisible ship's hull. The impact caused a brief failure in the cloaking system, revealing the massive vessel to human eyes. "There it is," Santos breathed. The alien warship was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium. Its dark hull bristled with weapons that could level entire cities, but the brief reveal was enough. Now the humans knew exactly where their enemy was positioned. Secret Service agent Tom Brady was protecting the president when the sky suddenly filled with descending aliens. The creatures wore advanced battle armor and carried weapons that fired deadly energy beams. "Lockdown protocol," Brady shouted into his radio. "Unknown hostiles on the ground." The president was moved to the underground bunker while Brady's agents engaged the alien soldiers. Their pistols and rifles seemed inadequate against the advanced armor, but they fought with desperate courage. Morrison's team struck from the forest surrounding Camp David. They used hit-and-run tactics, appearing from concealment to fire several shots before disappearing back into the trees. Miller, positioned near the camp's eastern entrance, caught 3 aliens in a crossfire with Santos, who was hidden in a maintenance shed. The creature's armor could withstand individual bullets, but concentrated fire from multiple directions overloaded their defensive systems. Davis used his Delta Force training to set up ambush along the aliens' advance routes. When they attempted to reach the main lodge, they found improvised explosive devices waiting for them. Agent Sullivan coordinated the defense from her position in the communications center. She had tapped into the camp's security cameras, giving the human defenders real-time intelligence about alien movements. But the real surprise came when the aliens tried to enter the underground bunker where the president was sheltering. They expected to find cowering humans hiding in fear. Instead, they found Chief Petty Officer Williams waiting with a modified flamethrower filled with chemicals that disrupted alien technology. The creature's advanced electronics failed when exposed to the toxic mixture. "Welcome to Earth," Williams said as he pulled the trigger. Above ground, Vexstar was growing frustrated. His assault teams were being systematically destroyed by primitive humans using weapons that should have been ineffective. The battle was not proceeding according to any logical plan. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are losing forces." "Faster than projected?" "Human resistance is more organized than anticipated." Vexstar studied the battle data. The humans were using terrain advantages, coordinated attacks, and improvised weapons in ways that his computers could not predict. They were fighting like animals, not soldiers. "Enough," Vexstar declared. "I will handle this personally." The Zephyrian commander descended from his ship wearing the most advanced battle armor in the galaxy. His personal shield system could deflect any human weapon. His plasma rifle could cut through steel like paper. Morrison saw the alien commander approaching and knew this was the moment of truth. Everything they had learned, every tactic they had developed, came down to this single confrontation. "All units, converge on my position," Morrison ordered. The team moved through the forest toward Morrison's location. They had fought individual aliens before, but this creature was different. Larger, more heavily armed, and radiating an aura of lethal competence. Vexstar reached the center of Camp David and stopped. He could sense the humans moving through the trees around him, but he was not concerned. His armor made him nearly invulnerable to their primitive weapons. Humanch called out in accented English, "I am Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Morrison stepped out from behind a building, his rifle aimed at the alien commander. "I am Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison, United States Marine Corps. You are trespassing on American soil." Vexstar laughed. "I sound like grinding metal." "Your species amuses me. You face technology beyond your comprehension, yet you still resist." "That is what Americans do," Morrison replied. "We resist bullies." The alien raised his plasma rifle, but Morrison was already moving. He dove behind a parked vehicle as the energy beam incinerated the space where he had been standing. Peterson fired from his distant position, but his bullet deflected harmlessly off Vexstar's shield. The alien commander was too well protected for conventional weapons, but Morrison had expected this. He had learned that the aliens relied too heavily on their technology. When their equipment failed, they became vulnerable. Clark activated his most powerful electromagnetic pulse generator. The device, built from modified medical equipment and civilian electronics, unleashed a wave of energy that disrupted alien technology for a 50-yard radius. Vexstar's shield flickered and failed. His armor systems went offline. For the first time in centuries, the Zephyrian commander was vulnerable. Morrison did not waste the opportunity. He emerged from cover and charged the alien commander. Vexstar, surprised by the sudden equipment failure, attempted to fight hand-to-hand. The alien was stronger and faster than any human, but Morrison had advantages that technology could not provide.